In the last episode, I told you about a dog who didn't want to leave even after he had passed. What I didn't tell you was, years later, another dog showed up at the exact moment it mattered most. You're listening to Life, the Universe, and Everything in Between. I'm your host, Van Holsing, and welcome back to Episode 2. Before my father-in-law passed, he had another Rottweiler, Maya. She wasn't just a pet. She was his best friend when he needed one the most. As time went on, as it often does, Maya ended up getting sick, and not long after that, she passed. My father-in-law was devastated like anyone would be. But he wasn't alone when it happened, for he had just been happily remarried, and in a quiet way, that helped him cope with losing her. Life moved forward the way it always does, even when something important gets left behind. But not long into his new marriage, he got sick as well. And far sooner than anyone expected, the end began to slowly creep in. It was during that time when the nights got quieter and the mornings felt heavier that something happened that none of us were prepared for. One morning just before sunrise, my father-in-law woke up to use the bathroom. And that's when his phone went off. A ring notification. Motion detected. But what he saw wasn't exactly what he expected on that cold, snowy morning. Standing there on the screen, on his newly installed concrete steps, was a Rottweiler, not moving much, not pacing, just sniffing the air, just standing there, waiting. The shape was unmistakable, the posture, the size. Even the way the dog held itself, alert, calm, and patient, it looked exactly like Maya. And the strangest part wasn't that there was a dog there at all. It was that there shouldn't have been any dog there. No one in the neighborhood owned a Rottweiler like her. No one let their dogs roam loose, especially not in the snow, especially not early in the morning. And yet, there she was. Later that morning, he called my wife and told her he had something that he wanted to show us. When I saw the video from his phone that he had sent, I didn't know what to think. I wanted there to be a simple explanation. I wanted it to be a coincidence. So I did the only thing I could think to do. I drove straight to his house. There was snow on the ground, which made it easy to see what had or hadn't been there. I got out of my truck and started looking around. And before long, I found exactly what I was looking for, and nothing what I expected. There were dog tracks in the snow. They started out of nowhere, right up the edge of his bushes. From there, they moved past the garage, followed the new sidewalk, and paused briefly on the concrete steps. The same steps where the dog had been standing in the video. I followed the tracks further, expecting to see where the dog went. But instead, they just stopped in the middle of the yard. No prints leading away. No trail into the yard. Just an ending. Like whatever had been there simply wasn't anymore. You're welcome to believe whatever you want about that. I know what I saw, and I don't have an explanation except this. I believe she came back to let him know it was time to come home. You see, he passed later that same night, and as hard as it was, I still take comfort in believing that whatever waits for us beyond this life, he didn't face it alone. 2 dogs, years apart, the same family. One stayed behind, making sure the house was still watched over. The other showed up when it was finally time to leave. Maybe some bonds don't recognize time the way we do. Maybe loyalty doesn't end just because life does. And maybe the space between what we know and what we don't isn't empty after all. Now that you've heard some of my stories, I'd be interested in hearing yours. If you like what you've heard, consider subscribing to hear more stories, real stories from listeners just like you. If you're interested in seeing the video I talked about tonight, I've included a link to it below. Until next time, stay curious about what lurks in the in-between.